Good evening, America, and good afternoon, Australia. You're back on Radio Toni live with your host, Toni Lontis, and this is the Everyday Business Show. I'm really excited to have a previous show guest back on the show today, but before I introduce her to you all, just a reminder, if you're listening on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, Payo is waiting online to send you any links that you require and answer your questions as best he can while Briony and I are talking. Just a reminder that on radiotoni.com you will find all the information and the links as well. So if you're listening to this while driving, just pop onto radiotoni.com and look under my guests and you will find information about Briony and the team that we're going to talk to today. Previously, we've spoken to Briony, and it was a great pleasure to be with her at the start of her journey. Briony Schadegg is HCI founder, director, and secretary. Briony used her time as a police officer, over 15 years of lived experience in dealing with trauma and challenges to wellbeing. So she developed an app in combination with Ben Fink, Danny Connery, and Joseph Cassar, and they founded HCI Insights, an Australian developed and owned company based in South Australia. Their mission is to empower users and organisations to positively and actively manage wellbeing for improved ability to meet positive individual and organisational goals. We've had Briony on the show before, we're going to briefly go over some of the things that we covered in the first show. And first off, I thought we'd start by asking Briony about the FRANKapp, which is what we're going to be talking today. And Briony, I want to hand over to you to talk about you and the team and the development of the FRANKapp.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that introduction, Toni. That was really humbling. It's awesome. It's great to be back on your show. So thank you for having me back again.
Absolute pleasure.
We'll get straight into it. So why we developed
Yes.
Frank. Basically, we want to set the standard of mental well-being. We want to be a global standard setter and also set the standard for social responsibility with tech organisations as well, and really push a positive well-being impact on the world. I deal with mental health every day. I deal with a wide range of it, so from the mild through to your worst nightmares, and I won't go into too much graphic detail about what I've seen in policing, because I don't want those images in my head, so I certainly don't want to put them in other people's heads. But that's what I'm doing it for, is because of what I see every day. I see your worst nightmares every day, and I want to prevent that happening to you and your family. And that's why we're here. That's what drove me to policing in the first place. And in policing, I got frustrated by the constraints, because even when you're a proactive police officer, you're still reactive in a lot of sense. So this was a way to fulfill my frustration, basically, and try and have that difference. And dealing with my own mental health challenges, because obviously in policing, you are at higher risk of developing mental illness. And I do have PTSD. So I found a lot of what worked on the market didn't work for me. I'm not really a big survey person, and I don't have time. I'm really time poor, even more time poor now that I've got a startup and a baby. But you know, a lot of the wellbeing apps on the market are quite time consuming, and you've got to input a lot of data. So I wanted an alternative solution to that, a product that was really quite different from what was currently available. And that's why Frank is really submissive and sort of sits in the background, and you know, we're sort of tracking your language rather than your like a steps, like a fitness tracker would.
Rather than
so you've got
rather than you having to put data in, it's capturing it for you, isn't it? Which makes it pretty unique.
Yeah, definitely. We believe so anyway. So it's and when you're not well, to ask someone to fill out surveys continuously and to journal, you know, you're struggling just to get through normal basic day-to-day life things. Having this huge or erroneous additional tasks then placed on your shoulders, for me, it was too much.
Too much.
Yeah, just wanted to make it simpler, more streamlined. Having said that, it's a very complicated, sophisticated product in the background. But
It's
that's
taken a little while to get it this far, hasn't it, Briony? It's
it
been
has.
a journey for you, yeah. And we promised listeners that when we first talked about FRANKapp, we'd go on to talk about the ongoing developments. But before we do that, one of the big considerations when you were developing the app was around privacy. Can you tell the audience how Frank protects your individual privacy and information?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, because we are talking about harvesting natural language through keyboard use on a personal device, that's really subjective to people's very personal information. So there is
Yeah.
an ability for the user to turn the keyboard on and off if they don't feel confident in the product. That's part of providing evidence and proof that we are looking after people. So you can turn it off. But through the whole design process, if you ask the team, they'll tell you how sick they are of hearing me harp on about how we're protecting our users, how have we protected this aspect, how have we protected that aspect of the design. So we've adopted a privacy by design approach, which is a thing in the world, because it's so important. The whole success behind this business will be reliant on consumer trust and integrity.
Yeah.
So it's pinnacle. Making sure that people's privacy is preserved, and we've done everything we can in our ability. Now, there's obviously going to be potential for a breach here and there, but at least we can hold our hands over our hearts and say we have done everything we can within our knowledge and ability to protect our users. Because at the end of the day, if we don't protect them and people's privacy is breached, that's going to ruin the reputation of the company, which is going to send the company bankrupt, essentially. So it's so important. There is no success of the company without it.
Yeah. Briony, you've tested this product on yourself. So you've used it, haven't you? You understand how it works intimately because you're one of the founding developers, or it's sprung from your imagination originally, didn't it? It was a thought in your mind that is now an actual product that you've used, and you're obviously really passionate about it. What are some of the outcomes that you'd like to see for individuals and organizations that use the FRANKapp going forward?
I want to set some realistic expectations, because one of our points of another point of difference is we're actually having Frank clinically tested and validated. So people know, but 93 to 97% of wellbeing applications that are available on the market actually have no clinical testing behind them. So that's something
Really?
There's I can't remember the name of the research paper, but there was a research paper on it, and 93 to 97% haven't been clinically tested. So that's another point of difference and part of us building trust with our users. So because we are doing clinical testing, here's the progression of what I want to see happen. To start off with, I want it to be something that users find useful. As simple as that, just useful, that it's giving them useful feedback, that it's taking their mood and emotion and it's putting it in a tangible format in front of them, and that is useful. And the same thing for organizations, that it's useful. The next step, once we've got the clinical testing and we know that it's useful and we've got that evidence-based approach, the next step is that it makes a positive improvement, or more importantly, empowers the users to make a positive improvement in their life and managing their well-being. Once we've got the clinical testing to back those claims up, the next step is, can we start looking at preventing serious disease, or from people falling into the severe category of mental illness range? And then once that's clinically tested, the long-term ambition is that we want it to save lives and that we want to improve global happiness. So we know that organizations play a key role in supporting individuals with managing their well-being, and COVID's really kind of brought a lot of this research that already existed up to the surface of just how important organisations are in that role with flexible work arrangements. A lot of people are working from home with COVID. Now that life's in Australia, life's sort of starting to go back to normal a little bit, but a lot of people are still engaged in those flexible work arrangements and still doing a lot of work from home. I think COVID's been a horrible thing for the world, but there's been some really positive things out of it. And I think it's really driven a lot of change and innovation. It was a terrible thing, but it provides a lot of opportunity. So we can get caught up in the dark side of it, or we can look at the opportunity that COVID's presented. But with new opportunity comes new challenges. So that's where I see Frank, again, sort of stepping in and hopefully making a difference there, so you can actually measure how these things are starting to impact you and measure those changes and tweak it. So, you can have the best program in the world in mind that's worked great for 100 other people, but it might not work for you. This will hopefully give you a way of measuring it, and as you tweak it and make adjustments to it, then hopefully you see an improvement. Hopefully Frank helps people with that.
So, Briony, you're partway through clinical trials currently. Is that my correct understanding?
Yeah, so our first pilot we've submitted our data to the Military and Emergency Services Health Australia, known as MISHA, which is formerly known as the Road Home. Yeah, and they're part of the Hospital Research Foundation as well. So we've submitted some data to them, and they've submitted some preliminary results, which have been really positive. Now, so without going too much into it, the positive results that we've got is now taking that and working out how we can use those results to basically make sure that we're using our machine learning algorithms and in the best possible way. How can we best optimize on these results? What is it doing really well? What is it not doing so well? Because we knew that there were going to be some good things coming out of the pilot. We knew that there were going to be some bad things coming out of the pilot. We knew it was perfect. We wouldn't have to pilot it. So, it's just taking what we now know and progressing the next step. How can we develop it? How can we enhance it? How can we push it down that path? What are some things that we cut away? What are some of the things that we improve? So that's where we're currently sitting at the moment. We're also reframing some of the raw data to give to the researchers as well, just to give a bit of clarity around some areas that have been a little bit vague, to see whether or not we actually need more data coming in from pilots. So that's why the pilot's still open at the moment, because we may actually need some more data for the researchers to be able to do their job and verify some of the results. And then we've got another pilot with organisations that's was scheduled for June, July, but we're probably going to have to push that back a bit now, because we're still deep within the results of the first pilot, and we want to explore those results a little bit further before we progress.
Briony, last time we spoke, the pilot app was only available on Android. Is it still only on Android platforms?
Yes.
And when do you think? So it'll eventually be on Apple iPhone platforms as well. But how far away is that, do you think?
The short answer to that is it depends. So we're actually doing a capital raise at the moment. So we had built the machine learning algorithms. Anyone who's sort of familiar with Android versus iOS will know that iOS in particular can be quite sophisticated and expensive to design for. But we had machine learning algorithms, and we wanted to get it clinically tested so that we could progress things along. And then we've got some evidence behind us going into a capital raise as well, to give investors some insurance and reassurance as well. So the long story short is we need the capital raise to then go back and fill out the iOS version. So we know that the technology, it didn't matter if we tested it on Android or iOS, we were testing the technology components. So it didn't matter which platform it was on. The problem with it only being on Android obviously meant we already restricted our pool of participants in the pilot, which was something that we really begrudgingly did, but it was a financial decision at the end of the day.
One of those things.
Had to make. So if there's any investors out there who would like to come in on this capital raise, please give me a buzz.
I was just going to say, let's tell the audience about what a capital raise looks like and the information that you want to, like, I'm fascinated. I've never been involved with a capital raise, and I dare say it's not been part and parcel of what you've ever done before. So tell us about that process, what it looks like, what you have to go through. You're shaking your head going, oh my God, it's a nightmare. But anyway.
Yeah, it's, you know what, it's a challenge, and I've enjoyed the challenge.
Yeah.
Particularly when you got a lot of financial uncertainty like there has been with COVID, getting people to part with money is always a difficult sale. So people love the product, they love the idea, but it's the because what we're doing is revolutionary. We are doing a massive disruption to the space. It is really unique, and there's nothing else out there. People get really excited about it, but there's this big risk factor also involved with it, which is why we're going through the clinical testing and doing everything else. So that's been the challenging part. And I come from a good family, but obviously knowing people who are in a position to invest is a completely different demographic.
Different area, isn't it?
So
Yes,
you're
I
having to
agree.
expand your network. So you're having to talk to people. And you're having to go through a lot of application processes as well. And you got to be really resilient because you get so much rejection.
Many knockbacks.
Individuals so there's a lot of work that even goes in before you even start the capital raise. So I'll go back a couple of steps.
Absolutely.
we did a pre-seed round, which was friends and family, and we did know a couple of investors within that small friend and family network who did invest for the pre-seed round, which was great. And they're looking to reinvest in this round. And a couple of them committed on paper, and a couple of them we're just fine-tuning some of the details. So so that was already a good help. And we tapped on them to say, hey, do you know of anyone else? Because they're quite well connected. And that sort of opened up some pathways for us, made some new connections. Where we haven't got investment, we've actually developed some really good relationships for other areas of the business and mentoring. And then, so from there, you got to work out how much you need. And one of the biggest challenges we've found with this investment raise is it highlights any mistakes you made in the first round really harshly. So if your valuation is too high in the first round, it actually affects your second round, because so you can actually price yourself out the market really quickly if you set your valuation in your first round too high, because then all of a sudden you're looking at an amount that doesn't quite translate to the business in your second round, because you have to raise X amount, and then you've got to work out how much that's going to be per share, if that's in the value. So when we initially did it, our valuation for this second round was too high because we knew that it was probably a bit too high in the first round. So we're now having to try and fix that problem in this round as well, to, in case we need to do another round down the track, we don't end up with that problem times two, badly valuated.
How challenging.
So that's, and we're not the only startup that falls into that trap. It's really common. So
I have heard that before.
Yeah, so that's one thing you got to do with the capital raise. Work out how much you need and how much you're prepared to give away for it, or what you're giving away for it. So we're giving away equity.
And that must be challenging to work out what equity to attach to the investment, because this is your baby, essentially.
Well, it was easier the first round, but we got it wrong the first round because we weren't probably as educated about it. This round we're more educated about it, but obviously we've worked out those mistakes from the first round, which has then made it harder to do this round. And it is hard letting go of your baby, but it's like parenting. You sort of, you got to do what you got to do to get it to where it needs to be in life. So those are the decisions that we're made, and sometimes it's not easy. It's it's hard, and you hear some real kind of unicorns in the media, like where someone's just come up with an app and 12 months later they're making all these millions of dollars, or they've sold it for millions of dollars. I think if you actually got that person on their own and really drilled down into them and got into an in-depth conversation, you would then probably hear about the tears and the sleepless nights and
Yeah.
the frustrations and the stress and the weight on the shoulders and
Yeah.
how it's affected other aspects of their life.
Yeah.
You know, the people that go through this whole experience of startup world and go through it relatively unscathed, I think are really, really lucky, maybe in a sense.
Yeah.
But for the
Yeah.
majority of startups that I talk to, we're not alone. Everything we've felt and
Yeah.
gone through, the tears, the highs, the lows, is pretty consistent across startup world. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and sometimes there are more
I've
lows
heard the same,
than highs.
Bryony. I've heard the same, but I too know how passionate you are about the ability of this app in particular to make a difference, not just in Australia, but across the world, and not just for individuals, but for companies and corporations going forward. I've had a number of interviews in the tech field lately, and it just fills me with enormous excitement, particularly the AI component and that machine learning and ability to help humanity. Because, you know, you often start talking about that subject and people can be quite negative and go down the rabbit hole of, oh, this is bad for humanity. But the capacity for good in AI and integration into human life is immense, isn't it, Bryony? And that's
That's
what
it.
you're.
I mean, humans are curious by nature, so AI is going to happen. It is.
It is
People want to deny it
done
or not.
deal.
It's going to happen. So you can either jump on board and shape the ride,
Mm.
or you can stand back and put your faith in other people that they're going to make the right decisions with it. Now,
Yeah.
some people are quite comfortable with sitting back and going along for the ride and watching the decisions, like other people make the decisions. I'm not one of those
Yeah.
people. I want to
Yeah.
be in the driver's seat. I want to help shape it and control it. And then at least, if it doesn't go the direction I want it to go in, at least I can say I gave it my best shot of trying to shape how
Yes.
that went.
Mm.
I get a bit frustrated with armchair critics
Yes.
because
I can
you know,
imagine.
put your money where your mouth is. It's easy
Yeah.
to hindsight is easy. Anyone can look back with hindsight and judge a performance. I do it to myself all the time.
Yeah.
It's part of
Yeah.
personal growth and personal learning. Um,
Yeah.
but you know, just give it a go yourself. That's it doesn't
Yeah.
and it doesn't need to be AI, just other things in life. Put your money where your
I
mouth is
was
and give
just
it a shot.
going to say, Bronnie, we're living in a fascinatingly wonderful time for all the challenges that the Earth and humanity has. Some of the technology that we will see in the next 10 years of our life, and that my grandchildren and your children will see, it just excites me. Like, we're so close to things like flights to the moon, the whole AI and its capacity. I had a fascinating conversation about AI integration into robots and robot learning. And it really does excite me. I think that those people that are at the forefront of developing apps and platforms that integrate AI will be ahead of the rest. And as you say, Bronnie, it's no good sticking your head in the sand and saying, "Oh, I don't believe in this is bad," because that's it's going to happen. You know, the number of conversations I've had with people recently about AI and in the area of AI, it's already happening, and you guys are absolute proof of that. So Frank is at the clinical trial first pilot stage. Towards the end of the year, it will then go into the second pilot stage, but you've got to get through the next round of capital raising. Is that the
So
process,
we
Bryony?
actually hope that we're planning on being in the market. It was September, but that's probably actually going to be closer to the end of the year now.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
capital raise will make the big difference there on our timeline.
Yeah.
The second pilot, we're actually looking at doing first quarter of next financial year. But yeah,
Yeah.
the capital raise is really
You can
key.
go to market. You can actually go to market with the clinical trials and the first pilot anyway. That's my correct understanding, Bryony?
Yeah, yeah. So we're already got a couple of pilot organisations on board who are our foundation, first lot
Oh,
of foundation customers essentially, which is pretty exciting. We're pretty
yeah.
excited to work with them. But I mean, when we go to organisation pilot, it's to see at a greater scale the measurable difference that Frank will make, and if it's got how basically make it usable for organisations and positively impact on individuals. So, but the actual machine learning algorithms would have already been tested before that, which is what this first phase pilot was about. So for the participants that were in our first phase pilot, Frank looked quite different because we needed to test the algorithm. So it wasn't even the product that we had in mind for the market release. It was so there was a lot of surveys and stuff like that, but that's because we needed to test the algorithms. The surveys, they'll come out for the end product. They were never going to stay in there.
But you needed to do rigorous training at that point to check that you had it right.
Yeah. So it was a big ask of our participants to see it. It was really, like I said, I'm not a survey person. We knew it was going to be really taxing for them, and credit to our participants because most of them got a lot further through the process than what we expected, and quite a few made it all the way through to the end, which was fantastic. So, and we did get some great data out of it. It's just weighing up if we need a bit more to get some more fine detailed results on some of the areas that we're a bit vague on at the moment.
Briony, are you at liberty to talk in an overall sense about those pilot organisations and what they'll be going through in that next phase?
Yeah, absolutely.
Without mentioning their names?
Yeah, I can mention a couple of them. So Police Health, which is a members-only private health insurer. They're Australia-wide. So they've also got another fund called Emergency Services Health, which is another private fund, which is not-for-profit as well, members-only fund. They come on board for our first pilot, one of our organisations. So we have really early conversations with them right from the get-go, and they've been supportive the whole way through. Another one of the other organisations that hasn't signed on the dotted line just yet, but have supported us the whole way through and done a lot of co-design with us already is Scotch College, which is a premier private school here in South Australia. And then the other one that we've been working with is the South Australian Government Department of Treasury and Finance.
Wow.
As well. So we're really stoked with those three organisations. We do have a couple of others that we're talking with, but we're a lot earlier in the process. And Gallagher Bassett, which is a global third-party claims administrator, the Australian contingent of that organisation, being really supportive of us, and they're using Frank as a bit of a value add to their product of suites as well. So they've been advocating for us. So
very cool.
We're really excited with where we're going with it, and having those organisations along for the ride too. So if there's any other organisations out there that would like to sign up to Frank, because it is a co-design process, we want Frank to be useful. So all those organisations are basically signing up to help design Frank. So, and as you can tell, they're all from different industries and areas. So this is an opportunity to pioneer a new HR tool, essentially. That's what it is for organisations, and be the leader in your industry, essentially, and be a promoter for employee wellbeing. And there's so many benefits for organisations coming out of that. Which is really well researched. You get better employee loyalty, you get improved productivity and performance. There's a 4-to-1 return on investment for mental wellbeing programs introduced by organisations.
That's really implemented.
Cool. So, if you're interested and if you think it's of benefit to your organisation, please contact us on the details that Toni's got on all the links. So
absolutely,
start discussing it.
Absolutely. Now, Briony,
set the standard.
I was just going to say, Briony, most of the organisations that you talked about are Australian-based, but they don't have to be Australian-based, do they? You're looking for worldwide support already?
Yeah, we do have plans to roll out globally. So initially we do want to target English, not necessarily where English is the national language, but English is a primary language countries. obviously, because we haven't developed this for other languages yet.
But you'll
So
get there. Like
we'll get
that's
there.
just that's a time thing.
That's further down the line. So, but initially, it's for
Yes.
English-speaking countries. So, it would be good if you do have a part of it that's in Australia. But if you don't, we can work around it. We do want to globalise, so we certainly would not be turning away an organisation from another country at this point in time, because that's our plan. That would be opportunity knocking for us. It would be
Yes.
silly to turn that down.
Yes. And it's not just health-based organisations, it's any large corporation who wants to improve the mental health of their employees can be involved in this process. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, just improving organisational performance, and gaining that
Yes,
competitive advantage. So, and the way we help organisations do that is through improved employee mental well-being. So, um,
yeah,
the idea with the organisational dashboard is, let's take the example that everybody's familiar with, COVID. Again, let's talk about that.
yes,
So when COVID first happened, we know that it impacted organisations. All right, so you wouldn't need Frank to know that that had a really negative impact for a lot of
it
organisations.
yeah,
But what you might have used Frank for is to measure everything that you implemented to counterbalance
and
the
see if
impact.
it worked.
So your flexible
Mm,
work arrangements. So flexible work arrangements, we know, are fantastic for supporting employee wellbeing, but they need to be properly
yes,
implemented. So not working from home is not great for everybody. There's
that's
risks
right.
and challenges
There's
that come with
people
working
that
from home. Yeah,
mm,
but people are more prone to do longer hours if they're working from home, because they feel they've got to make up for it and prove that they're doing the work. So burnouts actually are higher
mm,
risk for people working from home. So social
okay,
isolation is another huge factor as well.
yes, yes,
And obviously, in Australia, we do have an issue with domestic violence, and you're leaving people
yes,
vulnerable to domestic violence incidents at home. They're not getting that respite that they would get if they were going to work. And
yeah,
there is liability on the employer, because even though you're working from home, the employer still has to ensure that
that's
you have
right.
a safe working environment. So, how do you, as an organisation, best protect yourself in a scenario
Mm,
like that? We've got an employee who's being subjected to domestic abuse or domestic violence, and there's
yes,
an increased risk for injury because they're now working from home. So, how do you manage that? How do you handle that? How do you measure the
mm,
impact of all of that and
yeah.
address your liability as an organisation with all of those factors? So that's the problem we're
And
looking
Frank
to
will help
solve.
with that.
Exactly. That's what we
Frank
want
yeah,
Frank to do, is to help those
yeah,
organisations take an example like that and really, if they can improve the employee well-being and manage those situations, think of the impact
yes.
that that's going to have on your performance and your bottom line.
Oh,
You're not going to have people going off on sick leave. You're not going to have to pay workers' compensation. Um,
yeah.
they're going to be more engaged. They're not going to burn out, hopefully. It's about taking that information that Frank gives you and tweaking
Mm,
your policies, or you don't necessarily have to change them, but you can at least work out whether or not they're working and tweak them, and then you don't
yeah,
end up with these other results. So the idea is to have
yes,
that early implementation, and you've got that information there to act on it. So we really want to empower those organizations with making those decisions.
yeah, yeah. I see so much potential, and every time I talk to you, Brian, I get really excited for what the future holds, for Frank. I want to just quickly go back though to the next capital raise, and I want you to talk through the sort of investment partners that you're looking for and how they can connect with you to have a chat about that.
Absolutely. So I think you've got the links up. Otherwise, you can
I
go to
do.
our website. Yep. Our website will have a link on there as well, or you can email me directly. Uh, the type of investors we're looking for, we would prefer people that actually share our vision. We know that
Yes.
we've got a great
Yes.
business that's going to be profitable, but we would actually, and to be honest, it's a capital raise and we're a startup, so we're probably not
Yes.
cheap, but the ideal investor for us is someone who shares the vision, someone,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously we know that different investors are going to have different capacities. So we're going to have investors that have got the capacity to be more hands-on and help guide us through and maybe bridge some of our
Mm-hmm.
gaps of knowledge that we have as a team. And that's
Mm-hmm.
terrific. We absolutely encourage that, and we're coachable, and we're ready for you, and we want you. We know that we're going to get investors who want to put their money in, know when they're going to get
And
their
just
money
let you
out,
go.
and let us go.
Mm.
And that's fine as well. You're still very, very crucial in helping us reach our vision and our goal. So
Yeah.
um, essentially, we're open to all different types of investors. We're applying for a couple of different venture capitalist funds as well, and we're also looking to
Yeah.
do some grant funding that's available as well. So and then we're trying to draw some early revenue in too. So the
Uh-huh.
minimum
Uh-huh.
investment is 40,000,
Yep.
and you do get equity for that. So
Yep.
just best is to be transparent and open about that. That's because we're
Yes.
trying to keep
Yes.
this a simple investment round. So for the funds that we're trying
Yes.
to raise, we're essentially through grants, early revenue, and equity investment, we're looking to raise 800,000 Australian, and which is
Yes.
not a huge amount of money for a tech company, especially
No,
ed
it's
tech,
not.
which is what we are. And
Mm.
so because of the amount that we're raising, and to keep it as a simple investment round and to comply with ASIC, we can't go over
Yep.
20 investors, which is why we have that minimum of
Okay.
$40,000. We
I was
also
going
have,
to ask you how you come up with those. So thank you for answering. That was my next
yeah,
question.
yeah.
How do you come up
ASIC
with
in
those
Australia
figures?
have got some very strict rules and guidelines around investment rounds. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why we have a minimum, because otherwise we might end up with more than 20 investors, and then it becomes a complicated round. And then there's other um, things that we have to comply with through ASIC to achieve that, which is more
Yeah.
complicated. It draws up more time, more resources, and
Yes.
for the type of round that we're doing, we don't need to go into that. So we just wanted to keep it simple because there's not a huge amount of money that
Mm-hmm.
we're looking to raise.
Yeah.
That'll get us to market as well. That gets Frank into the market and
Oh.
start having good in the community and helping organisations. So that's past the first pilot, past the second pilot, plus past all the clinical results and testing, and out to market, end of development, iOS version, everything. We're out there. We're in the Australian market and maybe the global market already too, if there's
Oh.
organisations out there globally that want to sign on. So that's where it's going to get us. We've got the information memorandum available and a data room. That's all set, ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Got some referrals in there. We've got financial plans. Everything's in more detail. So please drop us a line and I will invite you into that room so you can have a look through.
That's seriously exciting. And I'm just thinking 40,000 is not a lot of money to invest in something that is so exciting to be part of. And thankfully, you've answered that question about how you decide what money you attach to what investors. So, can one investor invest 80,000, 120,000 versus 40,000? And being relatively new in trying to understand what capital raising looks like and how it works, how long before, so they get their money back, but is there a time on that, or they get an equity share? Like how do you decide those things?
Yeah, so they'll get an equity share. So they can go up to any amount that they want. The maximum that we're raising is
Mhm.
800,000. So if somebody's, and we
Okay.
do have a couple of people that have already gone in. So
Yes.
two of them, well, sorry, one of them two of them, sorry, we're finalising the amount on. One of them's already committed.
Yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that amount, if someone said I'll give you 800,000, be like, oh, we'll take a little less because we've already got
Yes.
already got some investment secured.
Cool.
Um, so which is fantastic. So anyone can, like, if someone wanted to come in and offer 300,000, 400,000, yeah, great, terrific. And it's so much
Yep.
simpler for me because that's less people I have to then
Yes.
manage along the way as well. And
Yep.
then so for that you get equity. So we've got shares. We'll issue
Mm-hmm.
shares at the end of the investment
Mm-hmm.
round. as far as getting money back goes, there's a couple of different exit strategies, but we feel
Yes.
that in the long term, the payout on the
Yes.
dividend is going to be more
Worth
benefit
it.
to the investor than taking their money out. Having said that,
Yeah.
this is the missing component out of the health centers
Yes.
on like that Android has and that iOS has. So I mean, Google bought up Fitbit to fit into their health center, and if you look at, I'm
Mm.
on iOS myself, and there's
Yes.
really nothing in relation to mood on my health center. It does everything else. It tracks my period, it tracks my blood oxygen levels because I've got
Yes.
my wearable. It tracks my steps, it tracks my heart rate, it tracks everything else, but it doesn't have the
But
mental
your
health
mood.
component. So we actually see that at some point, and we believe that this is, as much as this is going to sound hugely ambitious, we actually think it's incredibly plausible when you look at what's missing in that health center is that a large tech
Definitely
company like Apple or Google will probably
will
come
take
and try
on
and
Frank.
acquire
Yeah.
us. Yeah. So that's one exit.
Yeah. And
And
Briony, you don't have to be, you can be a mum and dad investor, can't you? You don't have to, be a high flyer, I guess you could say. You could just be a mum and dad investor that goes, wow, I just heard Briony speak on the potential of this app for the health of our future. They can invest just as well as someone else can, can't they?
absolutely. Look, if you're mum and dad and you've got the 40K to spare, and I
Yeah,
will say to spare because it is an investment, and any investment
it
does
is.
come with a degree of risk. And anyone who's looking at
Mm-hmm.
investing, I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you get your own independent legal advice. As much as we
Pendant.
have all our documents drafted by a legal professional, please go
Yes.
get your own independent advice to make sure it's the right investment for you as well. So not just that
Mm,
it's a safe investment, that it's the right investment. And all
yeah.
that information that we have available in the data room and on the information memorandum will help you then decide if that's the right investment for you. But please,
Mm,
if you do think that this is something you want to invest in, please, please, please let me know. Get in contact
yes.
with me. I can give you the information. Then please go get your independent advice and make your decision from there. But I'm happy,
Yeah.
and I don't want to take money from someone can't that it's not the right investment. I
Of
mean,
course.
I've got a
Yes.
really strong moral compass. So if it's someone who I can see is
Yeah.
living on the bones of their ass, I really wouldn't feel, as much as this is going to succeed, and I know I'm going to get a return on your
Yes.
investment for you.
Yeah.
I just couldn't in good conscience do it to someone because there is always that risk factor. And I've got to say, I'm heavily invested in
Yeah.
this organisation myself. It's
Yeah.
blood, sweat, and tears and cash, cold
Yes.
hard cash is gone into it. Um,
Yes.
but it's my company, so I feel more comfortable taking that risk for me. So I just,
Yeah.
yeah, like any investment, just please get your advice.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Probably doing
Um,
myself a disservice by saying that, but I just, I yeah,
That's why we love you so much, Bryony, because I know I know the process from the inception of the idea and where the idea came from. And just to go back briefly to that, it was your 15 years in police services and the trauma that you were trying to work through that spurred this idea in the first place of wanting to make it easier for people to look after their mental health proactively versus reactively and after the trauma's done. And it was your belief that you could create something that would circumvent PTSD, for instance. That's your hope, isn't it? That Frank will help pick up cues and mood that may prevent someone developing full-on PTSD, because no one wants to suffer PTSD. So in terms of policing and nursing and doctor related, and I'm thinking of the armed forces, all the armed forces, the potential for this app to be helpful in those circumstances is immense, isn't it?
and I know it will. I know it will with every fibre of my being. I know that we're going to make that
Yeah.
difference. We're just making sure that we've got the evidence to prove it as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm really excited that you've gone down the route of doing those clinical trials already, so that you've got that data to say, well, no, we actually know how this works. We know what, we know the why, we know the how, and here's the results. You have provable results that this has a positive impact on people's lives, and indeed will hopefully lead to saving lives. Because if the AI can pick up on moods that prevent horrible outcomes such as suicide, what a wonderful world to live in.
Yeah, and I think it is really ambitious what we set out on, but if we achieve that,
Yeah,
um, I think I'll be one of the really rare people in the world that can say I've made a difference. You know,
without a doubt.
my life made a
Without a
difference, a
doubt.
positive impact, and that's a pretty special thing to be able to say. And I think
Definitely.
I believe that this will do that. So that's exciting.
Bronnie, it's the only app of its kind in the world at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, there's some apps around that maybe look a little bit similar on face value, but then
Mm-hmm.
when you go into it a bit further, I've found them to be actually
Then,
extremely different. Um,
yes,
we keep looking for competitors all the time. A lot of the time, what
yes.
we don't find are competitors, we actually find collaborators, or a
Uh-huh.
value add
Yes,
that we can work
yes.
together. But yeah, we haven't found anyone that's doing anything like this, at least
Which makes it an incredible opportunity. It's like the people that look back and think, oh gosh, I wish I'd been friends with the Microsoft guys, or gosh, I wish I'd, uh, believed Mark Zuckerberg when he talked about this social, like it's that moment that you can think of Frank as. And I tell you what, I'll be cheering you on from the sidelines going, go Bryony, go FRANKapp. So in closing,
soon.
before we run out of time, look, I am one of the strongest advocates, particularly for women working in the technical realm, because as Bryony can probably attest to, it's just a little bit more difficult for people to take you seriously as a woman in tech, because traditionally we think that tech is all about the boys and the development is all about the boys. But here's Bryony turning that idea on its head and really creating something that will have worldwide impact. And it's from Australia. And I'm really, truly excited for you. Now, listen, before we run out of time, it's frankapp.ai. So frankapp.ai, perfectly simple, FRANKAPP.ai. And if you want to get hold of Bryony, it's just hello@frankapp.ai. Um, Bryony is very upfront about anything that you want to ask or know about the app. Willing to share quite openly about the process. And of course, if you're willing to invest in this app, just jump on a call with Bryony. Is there a closure time in this investment round, Bryony?
Yes, so we've actually got a close date of the 30th of June at the moment, so you've got just over a month.
Okay.
But
Yep.
like I said, our data room's ready to go, so you can, if you contact
Yes.
us with a conversation, I can send you through or the link to all the information, and then you just need to get
Yeah.
someone to review it from your end independently from us, um, and then it's
Yeah.
easy process from there.
Fantastic. I'm so excited about what you've been able to achieve in the last little while, and knowing what it's like to be a new mum. And I think the first time that we spoke to you, Bubble, was the first time we spoke, Bubble was like tiny, tiny, and then the next time we spoke on the radio, he was little, and so that's quite an immense amount of work, blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into the Frank app so far. So I amazing what women can do when they're passionately engaged in something that they believe will change the world, as I believe that the Frank app will do. Bryony, anything else you'd like to say to the audience in closing today?
Oh, look, just a shout out to all the mums who work out there. I always feel it's gonna be hard, but to all the women that paved the way before, oh my goodness, and especially women who have got more than one, I don't know how you do it. Like, oh, it's tough. It's
Yes.
tough. So I wish
Yes.
them all sleep and strong coffee.
Yeah. Yes,
Uh,
I recently had conversations with mums of newborns, and I'm like, oh my God, I can just like it's been 32 years since I had a newborn. But that first 6 weeks, that first 6 months with lack of sleep, I don't remember what that I don't remember, but I remember the brain fog.
and just in closing, in relation to Frank, look, please give us a go. And if you are on Android and would like to just help us out with a bit more data, please jump onto the website. The
Yeah.
links to the pilot are there. If you got any questions, please just reach out. If you're skeptic, reach out. We
Yes.
don't mind skeptics. Skeptics actually help us grow because sometimes you identify issues that we haven't thought of
An
yet.
issue that you haven't thought of. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
that's
was going to say, for all those tech heads out there, jump on and chat to Briony. Anyone with an Android, jump on and chat to Briony. The more data she and the team have, the better the product will be, and it's already outstanding product.
And if you don't know of someone, if you can't yourself or you know of someone, please feel free to do the introduction as well. We're open, we're coachable, we're looking to grow
Yes.
this. So just get in touch.
Briony, thank you so much for joining us on Radio Toni Everyday Business again. It's a divine pleasure, and I know that I'll be interviewing you again, probably towards the end of the year, because that'll be pretty darn exciting when you get to that point. And just a reminder, those on the audience who are listening today, this is an opportunity of a lifetime to invest in a tech startup that has a global impact. And once you get to talk to Briony and understand her passion behind the development of FRANKapp, you will be sold. And that, my wonderful audience, is our lot for this week. Briony, thank you so much. Wishing you all the best and hoping that you get some sleep as well soon.
Thank you, Toni. Thank you so much for having me on again. It absolutely means the world and it's a tremendous opportunity. And I love talking to you. So thank you.
I love talking to you. I, as you know, I love the tech stuff. I'm not a real tech person, but it fills me with just awesomeness. That, my friends, is our lot for this week. This is Toni Lontis, your host of Radio Toni and Everyday Business. We'll be back next week with another show. Thanks, Briony. Bye for now.
Thanks, Toni.